Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. This is the Bitcoin TAFA and chart analysis for December 9th, 2021. It looks like we could be heading down to the lower 40,000s again. If you actually look at the chart, the little step ladder thing is like we went up a little bit to 50,000 from 48, but now we're down at like 48,200 again. Now, I think there's a support line somewhere around here, but if we break too much under, there might be another longs liquidation, like I said yesterday. Now, I do think this time we can actually break down to maybe around 42 before we actually bounce back up. But we could go as low as 35 if we actually look at, for me, if I look at my overall trends, because, the last time, like I said, we went to 63 and then we dumped down to around 30 around six. Now we go up to around 67, and I think we can go down to around 35. But I would be surprised if we actually fell below around the $42,000 mark. But I can smell another longs liquidation, although I don't think this one will be as severe as the one a week or two ago. And we will probably just bounce up just as fast. There is a lot of bearish sentiment going into the market right now, so I am not sure if I would want to buy anything. And if you actually look at the technicals at this point, on the daily technicals lean heavily towards sell. The oscillators don't really say anything because the awesome oscillator hasn't crossed zero. The average directional index is getting stronger, but it's still fairly weak at 32. It was in the 20s for a longer time. The commodity index is oversold. But the thing is, if the average directional index is indicating a trend, that could be a very bad thing. However, the RSI and the stochastic are both neutral. The RSI is getting to the oversold level. But like I said, if the trend it grows stronger and stronger, you might want to hold off buying, at least for right now. As for the EMAs and the SMAs, I would say they all say sell. For instance, the 10-day, the exponential is lower than the simple, but also the price right now is even lower than the exponential. So like you have very, very strong sell signal from the 10-day moving average. So if you're looking like, in the next day or two, may not be a great time to buy. For the 20 also, the EMA is lower than the SMA, and right now we're lower than the EMA. Same thing for the 30, the 50, and also the 100. Also like the EMA even for the 200, which is the signal that everyone actually looks at, we're like well below the EMA for the 200 now. The EMA for the 200 was 50,000, and we are actually at 48,000. So unless we bounce back across 50, I can't really say we're going to be bullish. We're still above the SMA for the 50, but that doesn't really mean much because we've fallen below the 200 EMA. The 50 EMA is still high above the 200 EMA, so we don't have that death cross yet, but we'll definitely be looking for that in the days to come if this continues for several more weeks. So we will actually have to see what that actually does on the daily. In terms of the weekly, I think the weekly is leaning towards neutral now. But the thing is, like, none of the oscillators actually say anything. They really haven't changed. But the EMA for the 10 EMA on the weekly is leaning towards sell. So is the 20 EMA on the weekly. The 20 EMA on the weekly, like the EMA and the SMA are about the same, but we're significantly lower than the EMA right now. So that pulls it towards sell right now. We're also below the EMA on the 30. So you have to go back on the EMA on the 50 before we get to a buy. So if we're talking about like, will the price this time next year be higher, then the signals say, yes, we'll be higher this time next year than this year. But if you're talking about like even 10 weeks, 20 weeks, or 30 weeks, we actually might be in a bear market. So the thing is, like, we could get a bear for the next month or two, and then have another bull to actually pump up. And like I said, I think this kind of favors the theory of this. This definitely favors the theory of the smaller cycles and the smaller peaks and troughs, and not so much the giant pump and dumps that we always get. We've always gotten in the past. Looking forward to the 50 and the 100 on the yearly. If you're looking back like almost a year, then yes, it's still bullish. But if you're looking back towards around half a year, then it actually kind of gets bearish at this point. So the signals on the daily are not very good. The signals on the weekly are neutral, but if you're looking at the very short term, they're actually kind of weak. If you go out to the monthly signal, yes, it is still a buy. because even though the 10-month moving average is lower than the 10-month EMA is lower than the 10-month SMA, we're actually still above the 10-month EMA right now. So that's kind of a buy. And we're way above the 20, 30, and 50 and 100, obviously. But those don't really matter too much. 20 months is almost 2 years. So like the 10-month EMA, like I would say it's versus the SMA, I think it's a weak buy right now because the EMA is lower than the SMA, which means recently the momentum has shifted towards bearish. But since we're still above the 10-month EMA, it could still definitely be bullish. But that could easily turn next month. So right now, I would definitely say like be very, very careful. And if we move above 50K again, that could definitely be the buy signal. That could definitely be the buy signal from a technical standpoint. On the shorts and longs thing, there aren't as many shorts this time to liquidate. So if we do liquidate, it shouldn't be as bad. But because we're starting off lower than we were last time, we would probably liquidate to around 42,000. That is my guess anyways. And there's always people like overlonging things for some odd reason. They still just don't learn their lesson. They don't understand why leverage trading isn't good for small investors because you can get liquidated very, very quickly. So that's where we're at right now. In terms of like the fundamentals, like the fundamentals are still pretty strong. I mean, there's more adoption. I think testifying for Congress went really well yesterday. I do think like Janet Yellen saying that DeFi doesn't have to abide by the same reporting requirements that let's say the bill actually subjects like banks to. That's definitely good because DeFis don't really custody your money. I think that's very good. So there's a lot of like great positive things happening on the fundamental side, and I do think regulations are getting hammered out, and we're having more allies in the cryptoverse in politics. So that's really good. So fundamentally, we're very strong. But right now, like I think people are more of a bearish sentiment because we've been wobbling too much and it's kind of been to the downside. And the technicals on the weekly and the monthly support that. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.